So much for joining us on the program 60 Minutes Nigeria. I am Ameze Bazwai, standing in for Erusa Agbonlaho. Today on the program, we're going to be looking at the telecom tariff hike. We're going to be looking at the matters arising, every single thing that has to do with the whole thing. Recently, we heard that the NLC decided to stop the proposed protest that they were going to undergo regarding the telecom tariff increase. We're going to be looking at why, and of course, we're going to be looking at the implications the tariff hike would have on the common Nigerians. I have two amazing personalities who will be joining me to talk about what we're discussing today. NLC says they are no longer going to go ahead with the planned protest that they had for reasons best known to them. I think that came out from a meeting that they had a couple of days back where a committee was set up to actually review everything about the tariff increase and, of course, get back to the federal government in about 2 weeks. So we're hopeful that whatever decision that comes out from that would definitely be in the favor of all Nigerians. With me on the show today to discuss this I have Professor Adeshino Oladipupo in the building. He's a professor of accounting, taxation, and forensics. Welcome on board, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. And I also have a legal practitioner in the person of Osarbo Onagise. Good afternoon and welcome.
It's a pleasure being here.
All right, without wasting much time, let's talk a little bit about the economic implications of the tariff hike. I'll start off with Osarbo Onagise. Tell us what you think would be the implications economically of the tariff increase.
Well, first of all, good day viewers at home. It's a pleasure being here once again. Looking at the economic implication, I think we having a professor of economics would be in the right position.
Now, I'm looking at it now from the layman's view, layman's point of view. Imagine the hike, especially on people's businesses, for instance, businesses that need the telecom to actually move forward, to forge forward. How would that affect them economically?
Yes, without looking, allow me to smile first because it's not a laughing matter. Okay. Because when you hear the news that you have to pay 100% more of what we are getting to get the better services of this, it's not a laughing matter. We are being pressed from left, right, and center. Electricity increase in tariff, fuel subsidy is gone. The consumer in this question, the Nigerian consumer in this question, the little he has earned is being pressed hard. And so the economic implication is clear for all to see. There doesn't mean, it's not a layman's view, it's clear for everyone to see that the little we earned there's a lot of things that is fighting to have it, from electricity tariff, transportation cost, and so it's clear. The poor man will definitely suffer. What we are paying for, we have to pay more. But in hindsight, we are being told that maybe this will be for a while because water will definitely find its level in this sector. But this was a sector, if you remember back then, in the early 2000s when it came on board, it came at just getting a SIM card back then was 35,000 naira.
Yes, very expensive.
Very expensive. So it feels like, are we gradually going back?
Backwards, yes.
Are we gradually going back? But no, it was just due to the challenges every sector is facing, ranging from forex challenge, cost of doing business generally. I think two of those telecommunications, LT and NTN, announced loss. So when companies are making losses, they have to press the consumer. But we are hoping that, can they bear for a while? Can they bear for a while? 100% was high.
How long do you think they can bear for? Because you're saying, can they bear for a while? Is the economy getting any better? If you say, let's postpone the evil day, will the evil day be better when that time comes? I'll let you think about that. Let's talk to Professor Adeshino. The economic implications from your own standpoint.
Thank you very much. Before you talk of economic implication, we should understand what we mean by hike in telecom tariff.
Yes.
To a layman, that is the price that you pay for every call you make, for any text message, for any use of data or internet facility. It's going to increase by 50%. That's what they are saying. But what led to this? Something led to it.
Yes.
Simply because the operating costs of the telecom companies have gone up. The costs have gone up. And the increase in cost is arising from, one, that policy pronouncement in 2023, when the new administration came on board. Subsidy is gone. Has a lot of multiplier effects. It has increased inflation. And coupled with fluctuation in foreign exchange, like my colleague said, all of this put together have made the cost of doing business very, very high. And for how long will these companies bear? Reducing their profit margin, even making some of them to declare losses.
Yes.
And for how long will they continue if they will not close up? So they have to shift this burden. Who do they shift the burden to? To the consumer, depending on the elasticity of demand and supply for their services. So that's why the implications are far reaching to the individuals. It means we're going to be spending more on the same services, digital services that you have been enjoying before. You're going to spend more. It means that your disposable income will now reduce. And then the cost of living will increase, making average Nigeria consumer worse for it. To the telecom companies themselves, in the short run, they are likely to experience increase in revenue as a result of this hike in tariff. But that's going to be short-lived. Increase in revenue, increase in profits, but the reaction of their consumer will determine for how long that will be. So in the long run, they may not be better as consumers begin to look for alternatives to the use of digital services. Some are likely to switch from one service provider to the other. And are depending on, in the long run, the telecom companies may not be better off. But there are options which they also may likely to take to be able to retain their customers.
So what options do you believe that they can actually take to retain customers? Because in Nigeria, for instance, I believe that every telecom operator is going to key into this 50% tariff increase. So do we really have an option? Let me use that term. What? If you as a user, you have your own particular telecom operator that you work with, do you have an option? If you leave that one, you go to the next one, those ones are also still going to increase their tariff hike. So what options do the telecom operators have to ensure that they still retain their customers and give value for their money?
Well, you know, there are different marketing strategies. Yeah. If you are going to lose customer because of hike, and your other competitor is doing something to who, by giving incentives, in terms you can have plans, buy data, and then get maybe 100 minutes free calls just to woo or sustain their customers. I believe their marketing department will come up with different plans to be able to attract, because definitely consumers are going to react depending on the elasticity of demand of the consumer, whether they are going to bear the burden or they are going to look for alternative. I tell you, Afro Nigeria, like before, I used to leave my data to run 24 hours. Nobody will tell me now if I have to spend so much to switch it off and then put it on when I so need.
Yes.
So that's one strategy. So definitely it's going to affect us as consumers.
Yes.
Then it's also going to affect the companies themselves. If companies are losing, they may have to come up with plans to attract
Their customers.
customers or sustain their customers.
All right. Barrister Onaise, let's look at the legal implications. Do the citizens, okay, the consumers now, do we have a say in all of this? Because right now we're seeing that the federal government has set up another committee to look into the tariff hike, everything about it, let's put it like that. And I don't know, is there any way that they are impinging or infringing on our constitutional rights as consumers?
Well,
what are the legal implications?
Well, good question. If the viewers at home were like a client to me,
Okay.
surely if they gave me good money, I would say, yes, they have infringed on your rights. What are those rights have they infringed
Okay.
on? Let me clearly point it out. Your freedom to information and your freedom to information has been impeded. But would you say so when would that my argument fly in the face of the increase in fuel? Maybe we say yes to. Would that fly? Okay, would that fly when they increase the price of rice?
Oh, wow.
No.
Okay.
We just have to understand something first of all. Why the hike? Why the hike? Whether you like it or not, economics is at play. The law of demand and supply is at play. And it's government's duty to ensure that the market forces do not choke the consumer. And there are two regulators, two stakeholders
Yes.
in this market of telecom. Number one is the Nigerian Communication Commission, NCC,
Yes.
together with the Federal Consumer Protection, FCPC. Both of them, surprisingly, it appears that anytime there's an increase in tariff, the stakeholders in question, like when there was an increase in tariff in fuel, NNPC was already on standby to give a statement. Then when there was an increase in tariff, the power the NEC, who was supposed to be our protector, who was supposed to cry to, was already on standby to tell us something. And in this situation, it was so surprising to see the two players in question who are to protect the consumers' rights were already on standby and said, okay, the initial proposal was even 100%. Let's bear in mind, the initial proposal was 100%. It was the stakeholder that said, okay, we will only allow 50% in the interest of the Nigerian consumer, provided there is increase in quality, in call quality and internet browsing. We must all admit of recent, about yesterday, I found out users of Airtel are facing challenges. If you take a sample of all internet users, they will tell you as it stands that Nigeria has the poorest internet service. And there has been conversation over the years. How do we improve it? How do we improve it? The young minister of the young Bosun, Mr. Bosun, was hopeful that maybe technology would be enhanced without them increasing price. But you know, typical politicians, they say one thing when they are outside office, when they come into office, is a different thing. We are shocked that it was maybe a price increase that will guarantee. So the legal implication, which before I digress, was yes, they are restricting our freedom of rights. And we are praying, we're calling on the government to please, okay, fine, if you are going to allow 50% in the interest of the consumers, which we need, because if these services are not quality, trust me, you will not get it, because of recent times, we will not lie. By now, we expected there ought to be broadband coverage everywhere in Nigeria. I'm still surprised.
Yes.
In some villages, we still don't have network.
Yes.
We still don't have network. I'm surprised, but this comes. And why I'm even surprised that these companies are not bearing a bit longer. From the period of year 2000 to thereabouts, MTN was unable to disclose the amount of profits they made because the cost of production of a SIM card, they hid it from us. This was a SIM card. I just remember when I told you the SIM card was 35,000 naira. 35,000 naira. As far back then, 35,000 naira. Just imagine something that was worth 35,000 naira then, you are buying it at the cost of there was a time it went low to the cost of 200 naira.
Yes.
Maybe
sometimes it's free.
Yes, even free. Yes. So those huge money they made, can't you bear with us for just 2 or 3 years? Little by little, the dollar almost got to 1,800. It's coming down a bit. Some of our policies are kicking in. Is this hike needed at this point in time? Perhaps the two stakeholders said, yes, it's needed. Can the citizen react? Maybe I'll leave that, then I'll come back to that later.
Well, I want to take you back to the question I asked earlier on, as regards, you said, why don't they push it for like 2 to 3 years before they make this increment? Do you think that Nigeria in 2 to 3 years will be ready economically for this increment? Right. I know you talked about the dollar. Okay, so what other things do you think? You said some policies are being put in place. What policies do you think are being put in place? And if there are no policies exactly in place right now, what policies do you think that the government can put in place that will ensure that the economy becomes better?
Okay, let me start with I lived in a country, we are living in a country, you and I, for 30 years, it never had a refinery. It never had. And what that meant was every dollar we earned went out.
Yes.
Went out. So with these two refineries coming in, perhaps, and I believe the dollar, we are now saving back some of our dollars, and then little by little, some of the products which we are consuming, alternatives are being looked out for, and technology is bringing that there. My co-guest mentioned that very soon citizens will soon find alternatives.
Yes.
Will soon find alternatives, because whether you like it or not, necessity is the true mother of invention. So I won't be surprised that, okay, due to the hike in tariff, one ingenious Nigerian will find a way for us to keep in touch. Keep in touch. So let's pray market forces would give a chance for that to happen. Give a chance to happen, and give chance for that to happen, and we will have a government on standby ready to support it. Because if you look at the power sector as we speak, I feel in the next 2 to 3 years there will be some players in the power sectors, new players in the power sector. These lights that we are getting for band A, band B, band C, we will soon have access to it at the price if we can afford it. The same thing is at play in this telecom sector. So we all should be patient a bit. Only time will really tell. I'm not a prophet. I was okay. Yes, in 3. I'm sure in 3 to 3 years this sector. But from what I see, I have my reasons for telling this to me. Maybe could have waited maybe a year or 3, because if we remember when it was good, We paid you good money. There was a time, 1 minute was more than 200 naira.
Yes.
200 naira. Okay. Currently now, a minute is 12 naira. A minute is 12 naira in most, so 50% more of that will mean 18 naira. What that will mean for most businesses, I can't tell. I can't tell. Maybe with this kind of policies, like when the first subsidy increase came out, many said it would bring untold hardship, and a year down the line, we have literally saw what it meant. So let's see what this 50% will do. But one of the positive and the kickbacks we are expecting to get is the improvement in quality. Because if you just oppose that with what we saw in the power sector, where there was increments, the so-called band A said yes, there was improvement. They now get 18 hours of light, but it meant that they had money they were spending on fuel, and they were not spending it to pay BEDC. So, like I said, we have to leave time to tell. I'm a legal practitioner, not a fortune teller.
Okay, Professor Adeshino, do you share the same thoughts as Barrister Nagise as regards the timing of this tariff increase?
Well, my challenge is that there's no time that you can talk that it is most appropriate.
Okay.
Because personally, I don't have access to their records to know their costs. And it is the person that is wearing the shoe that know where it is paying.
Yes.
This guy, we cannot continue giving our operating costs, the overheads increasing. We cannot continue. So we have to increase our own price. That's what they are saying. But the only thing is that the regulators are there to ensure that this increase is fair enough, not the kind that we maybe be too burdensome to the consumers. So that is, so I don't believe that wait till 2 or 3 years, we cannot even know what will happen with inflation. Since 2022 to date, inflation rate is on the increase. So the more inflation rate increases, the exchange rate fluctuates, the more the cost of doing business will increase. So what time are you talking about? So the only thing is that if there's sincerity on their parts, then whatever increase in tariff they will bring should also be fair to the consumers. As to whether the consumers have right, yes, it is the duty of the government to protect the interest of the consumer. And that's what they are trying to do by meeting with the stakeholders and see how sincere they are in the type of increase in tariff they are coming up with. But increase in tariff, to my mind, will not necessitate increase in quality. Increase in quality will only arise if the telecom operators spend money, government spend money on providing telecom infrastructure, especially to those areas that are not yet served, like you said, to increase access. Revenue can come from that, but it is not because of the increase in tariff that we bring about that. There must be deliberate efforts on the part of government as well as the telecom operators. Maybe through public-private partnership, they take effort in providing telecom infrastructure development. And that may attract investors. As we speak now, Ali, will you think of foreign investors wanting to come into telecom industry? Because the cost of doing business, the cost of their doing business is quite high.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Adeshino. I would like us to delve a little bit into the legal implications a lot more. As regards infringement on a right to information access and, of course, communication as well, what do you think the government can do, Barrister Onagise, as regards this infringement?
Like I pointed earlier in the show, that the two players in the sector, two stakeholders in the sector that were meant to protect these are rights, to ensure that we are not being extorted, we are not being hanged by the throats. The NCC and the FCPC, the FCPC. But they came out with a statement and said, we are only allowing this increment. We are only allowing this increment because it will secure quality. It could secure quality. It will secure improvement in that sector. Earlier in the show, he mentioned maybe should government step in. Should government step in? But we all know what happens about when government steps in. We don't get that sort of quality. That sort of quality. For years, we never had a refinery because it was government owned. But as soon as we let a player like Dangote come in and have free access, well, voila, we have 2 refineries. It felt like a dream, but it took. I kid you not, it's not propaganda, it's not APC propaganda. There's 2 refineries working. And Nigerians are debating when we are now like, it feels like there'll be a time fuel might actually crash by 50%. It feels so. Like I said, I'm not a prophet, but it feels so. So if this hike comes in and we now have improvement in quality, then market forces now begin to play. And like he even earlier mentioned that by then, if you pay this, they will give you certain quality.
Yes.
DSTV, as we speak now, and other cable companies who have increased, if you ask them what has happened, it's because they are the only player in the market. They are experiencing pure monopoly in that market. And so, but in this sector, we have up to how many players?
About 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Yes. There's competition.
There's competition. So if this hike comes, if this NCC is allowing this hike to come in, I like to believe, and I do believe that it came in because it's needed at this time. Like I mentioned, the facts do not lie. Numbers, people can lie, but numbers do not lie.
Yes.
Both declared losses for the last 2 years, citing cost of operation and fluctuation in forex. And the only way to address this is if they hike the price. Will government intervention help? Yes, but in the proper way, by maybe what the US government do. They give free loans or grants to ensure that this, because we need to communicate with each other. Business need it. If a buyer is not talking to his seller, that deal doesn't go down. If someone is not talking to his loved one, they lose affection. If the people who are guiding us, the police, if it's because of 5 naira, I'm unable to inform the police, you know what will happen. So the government cannot just sit back and watch this unfold.
Okay, so what do you think the government should do?
One of the suggestions which I made, there may be time for them, it's high time for them to seek grants.
Okay.
The US did it to save the aviation sector. They did it in the recession period to save the banking sector. They did it. But here, there's hardly, it just seems like it's the petroleum sector the government has been subsidizing. Maybe it's time they should step in, give that same, they should give that same lease of life to the telecom sector, because they need it at this point in time. It's been easy. Well, many sectors do need it, but they need it at this point in time, because Nigeria cannot afford another hike that stretches for that little income you have. I just can't imagine, okay, for someone who's, for him to communicate with his loved ones, run his business, he spends maybe 25,000 naira.
Yes.
25,000 naira, asking a 50% increase, meaning he should go and get 50,000 naira. To think of that, and he has school fees to pay. He has worker salaries to pay.
Sure.
It's unbearable. Government has to step in. And one of the ways they have to step in is give grants. The US have done it and it's worked. And the automobile industry kicks off from there.
Yes.
If they do it at this point in time, it will do us no harm. It will do us no harm. I don't know why the administration at this point in time, they are saying, okay, there's scarce for funds, we just want to focus on infrastructure, on road infrastructure and just agriculture, so that we can feed the population. This telecom sector, we need it. It is responsible for many employments out there. It is responsible for it. So if it goes down, expect job losses. So perhaps this 50% should not be the only thing that should be on that table for that committee. They should still tell the government, please, pump in some grants to these people so that they can maybe make some adjustments. Thank you.
All right, Professor Olajipopo, let's talk a little bit about what the government can do. Economically, it may have a toll if this telecom tariff hike is put in place. What do you think the government can do to protect the consumers, as well as still ensure that revenue is generated?
Well, thank you very much. Government will not give grants to companies to run their daily operations.
Okay.
To me, I don't think that will make sense. But if government can help in the area of infrastructure development,
okay,
by enhancing the broadband access, then that can enable the operators do better with improved service delivery. Consumer satisfaction can be enhanced. They cannot see reason why they will pay higher for the same service.
Okay.
But until inflation is addressed, until the issue of foreign exchange fluctuation is addressed, the general increase in prices of things cannot be curtailed. And if these operators, they also buy. And if what they are buying is higher, then they have no alternative to shift the burden. And would they shift the burden to? They shift the burden to the consumer. So it now depends on the elasticity of demand and supply. Some individuals be able to adjust, some might not be able to adjust.
Yes.
Some, especially the small, medium enterprises, it will impact on their activities. So my appeal to government is to see how they can collaborate with the telecom service provider in enhancing their capacity to produce quality services in terms of infrastructure development. They can go to market to raise fund for them to finance infrastructure development, to increase access coverage, so that those areas that are underserved or they are not yet served can be brought in. Okay. When they are brought in, there will be increase in revenue to both the service provider as well as government. Then in the area of this, what they call this, the space, the use of space, government can have a spectrum, we call it electromagnetic spectrum. Government can make use of that to give more access, sell more. And then when there's increased competition, prices or tariffs will also come down. Remember that before 2001, when there was liberalization in this sector, only one NITE, I guess, was in control. I can tell you how much I bought my lifeline, which today I cannot even know what happened to it. Then when they came, when these telecom operators, they came, the prices, the tariff were high. It was due to competition that the thing came down.
Yes, yes.
And it's like we are now going back. But where we are going back is because the overhead cost to these operators is very, very high. I hear each time there's power outage, how you put on your generator, because I hear from my company there. So you can see the cost of doing business, it's on the increase. It's on the increase.
Yes.
And to us, the consumer, the cost of living is also on the increase. The only way government can help us is to sit down with this operator and see their real costs, hoping that their costs are not fictitious, to be able to justify why 50%, why not 20, why not 10. The process of arriving at that 50%, I think, is the issue, which I believe the committee will look into. Tell us what costs you to provide services for 1 minute call. If it is ₦1, then how much are you charging currently? How much do you now want to charge to ensure that the profit margin will not be abnormal, and then still give room for consumers, whether individual consumers or corporate consumers, to still be able to breathe.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Oladipupo. Earlier on the show, I actually made mention of the fact that the NLC recently postponed their planned strike as regards this, rather planned protest as regards the telecom tariff hike. And joining me shortly on the show is the factional chairman of the NLC in Edo State, talking about Comrade Odion Olaye. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, I'll bring him on board. Stay with us. If you're just joining us, this is the program 60 Minutes Nigeria right here on independent television. Today we have been taking a look at the telecom tariff hike We've looked at the economic implication. We've looked at the legal aspect of it. How does it affect us as consumers? And of course, we've talked about how the government can play a part, can play a role to ensure that they protect the citizens and the consumers as well, regardless of the fact that there is need to, of course, increase revenue generally in the country. With me, joining me right now is the chairman of the Edo State NLC. Of course, Odion Olaye is in the building. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
It's amazing to have you here. I almost thought you wouldn't be able to make it, but thank you for sparing your time and being here on the program. Let's just dive into it. The NLC decided to withdraw their proposed protest. Can you give us a little bit insight about why they did that?
Yes, the reason for the postponement of the proposed protest was that if of that date, the federal government wrote to our national body they want to meet with them because of the protest. And I think at about 11, 12, the national headquarters communicators telling us that it's been postponed for 2 weeks. And the reason is that they have told the federal government before they should increase anything, there should be a committee. And at that meeting, they agree that the Nigeria Labour Congress should bring 5 persons, while the federal government is bringing 5 persons, making up 10-man committee to look into the hike in the tariff in communication. So the reason why something was postponed for 2 weeks, suspended for 2 weeks, that's it.
All right, sir. So tell me, what are the expectations of the NLC as regards this committee? Yes, they've been giving them 2 weeks to review the telecom tariff hike and, of course, the 50% increment. Tell us what the NLC is expecting that will be the outcome of that review.
Yes, what NLC we are expecting is either status quo remain, or even if at all, if they have a good reason for increasing that 50%, we will not take it, even though they say this is the reason. It's either the status quo remain or a little increment, maybe by 10% or thereabouts.
Okay. My other guest on the program, Professor Oladipupo, earlier said that there's a particular reason why these telecom operators actually decided to enhance or improve on the tariff and increase it by 50%. Do you agree with the NLC chairman of Edo State that 10% would have been okay? I know the other guest on the show, Barrister Nagise, was saying probably this was not the time to go ahead with the increment. We could have waited about 2-3 years. So now the NLC Edo State chairman is now saying that at least 10% would have been okay. As an economist, do you think that's
well, I'm an accountant. I'm an accountant, and I know that in costing and even in price determination, your cost of operation form the basis. Then before you can say, it's okay, how much profits do we want to make? Then you have to add your profit margin, then before you determine your price. So unless the NLC, we know the actual costs of providing telecom service. If the operators be sincere to show to them this is what it costs us to provide 1 minute call service, text message, and they look at it and it's justifiable, then they can now argue how much profit margin. That will determine the percentage.
Okay.
So, but just arbitrarily fix 10%. 10% of what? 10% of what? Because if they are not sincere, it's okay if that's what they want to, so they will increase their cost, and then it says, okay, put 10%, they will still achieve. So, but Presently, maybe what he's saying, on the other hand, 10% of existing charges.
Okay.
If we are paying 100 naira, 10% is how much now? 10 naira. So new price will be 110 naira. That's what he's saying.
Yes.
But the question is, will that take care of the costs? If it's not take care of the costs, then they will still come back, because once they are unable to meet up, to break even, you understand, they won't be in business. They will run at a loss. So, in as much as I do not believe, I don't think it should be a perfect market. Government still have way to regulate, but let both parties, the consumers, the operators, even the regulators, let us be sincere. If they were able to know their costs, know the reason why they are asking for increase, we will know whether the 50% they are proposing is justifiable or not. And then we can now negotiate. But what is important is that they don't run at a loss. Once they are able to bear their costs and then have their little profit on top, that will enable them to remain in business, not necessarily having super profits. It will be good for them. It will enable them to remain in the business. It will be good to the consumer, because it will allow us to breathe. But as it is now, 50% increase will reduce our disposable income. Life is already unbearable, the cost of things. But more fundamentally, as I've said, what is causing this problem has to be addressed. Is the inflation.
Yes, you mentioned that earlier.
Let's
talk to Comrade Olai.
Yes.
Earlier on, the guest actually said there may be a need for the federal government to look into subsidy of the telecom sector. Okay, so do you buy into this ideology? Aside from you saying that, okay, rather than 50%, let's do 10%. Do you think that if the federal government should subsidize it, would it be better for the consumers overall and for workers in Nigeria?
Well, it will not be okay for the workers of Nigeria. And the issue of 10% that you mentioned, I didn't say that they should increase. What I said earlier is that as at the time the committee met and the telecommunication setup bring out their program and the reason why they are increasing, and we'll look it together. Even if at all they have to, it cannot be more than 10% because of Nigeria workers. Because we don't even need anything increments now, because the Nigeria workers are still agitating that the hike in fuel should come down.
Yes.
Because it has affected us seriously. The 70,000 naira minimum wage you are talking about, the federal government approved for Nigeria workers, they are tactically collected back by increasing the fuel. You know how much we are buying fuel?
Yes.
200 naira.
True.
Suddenly from 200 naira to 600 naira, 600 naira to 800, 800 to 1,000, today 1,100, 1,020 naira. Every day, if you go to this fuel station, 1,050 naira, 1,020 naira.
20 naira, yes.
The average worker that is getting 70,000 naira minimum, receiving 70,000 naira in a month, it has fed them more than when they were receiving 40,000 naira. For instance, the place they normally go for transport, 200, when the fuel was 200 naira per liter.
Yes.
Now it's 600 naira a day, 800 naira a day. So how? Then you just bring that of telecommunication into the something again, to the ship. So to we Nigeria Labour Congress is that the federal government have to, rub mind with the private sector that is running the something, to even pause for now, not to increase anything for now, till when they are able to do something better about what we call it fuel. Because yes, the CNG they brought, it like a day, yeah, we have about 5 fuel, a filling station of it. But if you are loading from here to Ore, you have, if your vehicle is CNG, can you get CNG in Ore? You can't get it. True. So let them for solve the problem of fuel, hiking fuel. Yes. Yeah. When they solve that one, they can come back to this. That is most problem. That is even our interest.
Okay. Thank you so much, Comrade Odionla, Edo State Chairman of the NLC. And of course, Professor Adeshino Oladipupo for being on the show today. It has been really insightful. It has been really encouraging hearing the NLC Chairman in Edo State talking about the reasons why there is a need to bring down the tariff increase. And of course, we're looking at fuel increment as well. It's affecting every single person in Nigeria. There is need for us to bring it down if the government would actually listen to this. My name is Ameze Bazwai. This has been 60 Minutes Nigeria. Thank you so much to you for being a part of it as well. I'll be here, same time, same station for another exciting episode of the program. Good afternoon.